Alright, so we're going to be working on our new unit, Module 2. Our topic for today is going to be multiplying multi-digit whole numbers and multiples of 10 using place value patterns and the distributive and associative property. Before we get into what all that means, I want you to listen to this problem and work on me with solving it. The top surface of a desk has a length of 5.6, so a length of 5.6. The length is 4 times its width. So the length is going to be 4 times greater than its width. What is the width of the desk? Well, let's draw a model to help us. The length, I'm going to label that length, is 5.6. And it told me it's 4 times greater than the width. So here's my width. The length is 4 times greater. That means it takes 4 widths to equal that one length. So now what do I have? Well, I have 5.6 needs to be divided into 4 to figure out how big each part is. So I'm going to do 5.6 divided by 4, subtract, bring down. So I see my width is 1.4. Alright, remember I'm using these models to show my problem. Here my model showing my length is 4 times greater than my width. Alright, let's move on to this problem. Okay, I have 4 times 30. I'm going to rewrite it as 4 times, let's go as 4 times 30. I'm going to rewrite as 4 times 3 tens. Now, what is that? That's going to equal 12 tens. What is 12 tens in standard form? Well, that's going to equal 120. Remember, I have a group of 10 right here, so I regroup that to my next place value over, which would be my hundreds. Alright, so now let's work on this problem. What would 4 times 300 be? Well, I want you to think about using that place value. That's what we're working on today. So that would be 4 times what? How can I rewrite that using my tens? Well, that's going to be 4 times 30 tens equals 120 tens. How can I use my knowledge of place value to figure out where is that going to be? Well, I can use my knowledge of place value to know that I have groups of 10. So I'm going to regroup them into 12 hundreds. And I can use my place value of that to regroup that into what? Into 1,000 and 200. So my answer is going to be 1,200. Okay. Use your knowledge of place value to figure out what would 40 times 30 be. Well, let's check. I'm going to regroup that as 4 tens times 3 tens, which equals what? 12 tens. Is that correct? So I want you to think. Here I have a group of 10, and here I have a group of 10. So this actually isn't going to be 12 tens. I have 2 tens multiplied together, so that's actually going to be 12 hundreds. Remember, 10 times 10 equals 100. So here it's going to be 1200, which will then equal in standard form 1,200. Okay, use your knowledge of place value to figure out this one. What is 4,000 times 30? Well, let's see. That's going to be 4 times 3 equals 12. Here's my 4 and 3. And then when I'm multiplying that, I'm going to multiply it by its place value, times 1,000 times 10. So here I have 12 times, and I should know for my place value that whenever I multiply anything by 10, I move it one spot over. So this is going to be 12 times 10,000, which in standard form will equal 120,000. Alright, let's try our next one. Here I have 60 times 5. What would that be? Well, that is going to equal 300. I can use my place value as 6 tens times 5 will equal 30 tens. And then 30 tens, of course, equals 300. What I want you to notice here is it doesn't matter which way I multiply. I'm still going to get the same answer. I can do 6 times 10 times 5, or I can multiply those 6 times 5 first times 10. Either way, I'm going to end up with my answer of 300. So when I'm switching the order, when I switch the order that I multiply, what am I doing? I'm doing something called the associative property. The associative property means I can multiply in any order that I want. I can flip that order around. Alright, let's try our next one. 60 times 50. Well, what I'm going to want to do is I want to use my associative property. So I'm going to flip that order around. I'm going to say 60 is going to be 6 times 10. 50 is going to be 5 times 10. And I'm going to group my tens together. So that's going to be 10 times 10 times, now I'm going to group my 6 and 5 together. And this might help me visualize it a little easier. So now I have 100 times 30. So what is 100 times 30? Well, that's going to be 3 tens times 100, which will equal what? It's going to equal 3 thousandths. I have a 10 times 100, so it moves over one place value. So my answer in standard form would be 3,000. Okay, let's try it again. What would be 60 times 500? I'm going to use my associative property to do 6 times 5 times 10 times 100. That 10 is coming from the 60. I'm doing 6 tens. This 100 is coming from that 500. I'm doing 5 100s. So now I get 30 times 1,000. That'd be 3 tens times 1,000. So it moves one place value over. Which would be 30,000. Alright, let's look at one more, then we'll move to another problem. Now we can see how we're going to use these kind of strategies. 60 times 5,000. Going to rewrite that as 6 times 5 times 10. That 10 again coming from that 60 times 1,000. That 1,000 coming from that 5,000. I'll get 30 times 10,000. It's going to be 3 tens times 10,000, and it will move one place value over, so I'm going to get 300,000. Okay, now let's use everything we've learned to solve more complex problems. Here I'm going to have 451 times 8. So what can I do? Well, I have many different strategies. What I'm going to try first is use my standard algorithm. 8, 0, carry the 4, 32 plus 6. This is what my answer should be. I'm going to record at the bottom. And now I'm going to use my other method. I'm going to be using my place value. So what is this? This is going to be 400 times 8, and I'm just going to multiply each place value together. So what is 400 times 8? Well, that's going to be 3,200. Now I'm going to use my other place value. 50 times 8, that's going to equal 400. And my last one is going to be 1 times 8, which equals 8. Now, 451, that's just 400 plus 50 plus 1. Notice when I add them all up, I get that same answer. So what am I going to do with these parts? Well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to add them up. So I'm going to add, and I get 8, 0, 6, 3. Notice how this answer, oops, I erased my 8 down here. This answer matches that answer. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to solve another one that's going to be very similar. 451 times 80. Well, first I'm going to use my place value this time. To use my place value, what I can do is I can leave this 0 off and just multiply by 10 at the end. I'm moving it one place value over. So this is going to be 400 times 8, 50 times 8, and 1 times 8. 3608. Then what I have to do, I have to multiply that by 10, so it's moving one place value over. So my answer is 36,080. Okay, let's try one more. 4510 times 80. So what can I do? Well, I'm going to get rid of these zeros. That means I need to move it 2 place values over. So I'm going to multiply just like normal, and I'll get that same answer, that 3608. And what do I need to do? Well, I need to multiply it by 10 and another 10 because I pulled those 10s out up here. So it's going to be 10 times 10 is 100. So I'm going to be moving it 2 place values. So my answer is 360,800. Okay, and my very last problem. How many place values am I going to be moving it? Well, I'm going to pull out 1, 0, 2, 3. So that's 10 times 100. So I'm going to move it 3 place values. which means it's going to be 3608000. So it's going to be 3,608,000. Alright, what you're going to do now is you're going to be working on your problem set. Then your exit ticket, followed by your math project. Alright, good luck today.